that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a...
The silence has been broken, and the GOAT has officially entered the chat. In a brand new, unfiltered interview that is currently tearing through the sports world, basketball royalty Sheryl Miller didn't just defend Caitlin Clark. She absolutely decimated the ongoing narrative pushed by Sheryl Swoopes. For months, we've watched the old guard versus new era tension simmer, but Sheryl Miller just turned the heat up to a boil. Known for being the most dominant force to ever lace them up, Miller went on the record to address what she calls the big dummies who continue to move the goalposts for the Indiana Fever phenom. She didn't mince words, calling out the vicious and harmful narratives that have attempted to downplay Caitlin's impact on the game. But the real bombshell? The moment she addressed Sheryl Swoopes directly. Miller, who coached Caitlin during that historic WNBA All-Star game, revealed what she actually saw behind the scenes. And it contradicts every overrated claim we've heard over the last year. Miller argued that the hate isn't about basketball. It's about a generational jealousy that is fumbling the bag for the entire league. She issued a cold-blooded warning to the critics. Stop being bitter and start being grateful. Today, we are breaking down the specific quotes that left Sheryl Swoopes fans in shock. We're looking at why Sheryl Miller believes Caitlin is despised for reasons that have nothing to do with her jumper, and the secret advice she gave Juju Watkins to avoid the same toxic traps. The war for the soul of the WNBA has reached a breaking point, and a legend has finally chosen her side. This isn't just an interview. It's a total demolition of the status quo. Let's get into the truth. If you want to know how high the tension has gotten in the WNBA, look no further than the recent sit-down on the All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. This wasn't just a casual conversation about basketball history. It was a 90-minute masterclass in calling out the nonsense. And the woman leading the charge? Sheryl Miller. Sheryl Miller is not just a legend, she is the legend. Before the WNBA existed, before the millions of dollars in nil deals, and before the sellout arenas, there was Sheryl. She dropped 105 points in a high school game. She revolutionized the sport at USC. So, when Sheryl Miller speaks about the state of the game, the world listens. And what she had to say about the treatment of Caitlin Clark didn't just ruffle feathers. It plucked them. Miller didn't mince words. She addressed the vicious and despised nature of the commentary surrounding the Indiana Fever rookie. But she took it a step further by labeling the critics within the WNBA community, specifically the legends who have moved the goalposts for Clark, as big dummies. This wasn't just a defense, it was a total demolition of the status quo. The big dummies quote, a generational wake-up call. The quote that is currently going viral is Miller's direct challenge to her peers. Speaking on the podcast, Miller said, "I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said. I was like, come on, you big dummies. Is she getting hyped? Yes, but she was in the backyard. She was putting in the same time, sometimes maybe more than you were. I can't fault her for what she was given. You're getting paid now. Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat at the table." Miller's point was surgical. She isn't just defending Caitlin Clark. She is attacking the financial illiteracy of the critics. She highlighted that the Caitlin Clark effect isn't just about one player's ego. It's about the charter flights, the higher salaries, and the massive TV deals that every player in the league is now benefiting from. By attacking Clark, Miller argues, these dummies are essentially biting the hand that is finally feeding them after decades of struggle. The Sheryl Swoopes factor. The silence is broken. While Miller didn't always name names, the Sheryl Swoopes shaped hole in the conversation was impossible to ignore. For over a year, Sheryl Swoopes has been the primary architect of the Caitlin Clark is overrated narrative. From her factually incorrect claims on Gil's Arena, where she suggested Clark took 5 years to break the scoring record, to her curious silence during broadcasts when Clark made history, Swoopes has become the face of the old guard resistance. Sheryl Miller's defense of Clark acts as a direct counter-narrative to Swoopes. While Swoopes claimed it would take Clark years to adjust, Miller pointed to the reality of the 2024 to 2025 seasons. Clark didn't just adjust. She broke the single-season assist record, led the Fever to the playoffs, and won Rookie of the Year in landslide fashion. Miller's Big Dummies comment was widely interpreted as a direct response to Swoopes' history of moving the goalposts. Miller effectively told the Swoopes camp that their jealousy is costing the league its biggest marketing opportunity in history. The All-Star Revelation, What Miller Saw. One of the most powerful parts of the interview was Miller's reflection on coaching the WNBA All-Star Game. This was the moment where the big three of the new era, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Miller herself, shared a sideline. Miller revealed that before the game, there was a heavy weight on Caitlin's shoulders. She described Clark as getting hit from left and right by media narratives, racial tension, and veteran animosity. Miller shared a private moment where she hugged Clark and told her, "I'm so proud of you. Savor this, keep being you. No matter what, keep being you." According to Miller, Clark's reaction was one of pure relief. "Finally," Miller recalled Clark saying, "someone who's on my side." This revelation is a massive indictment of the WNBA's veteran leadership. If a 22-year-old superstar feels that only a retired legend from the 80s is on her side, what does that say about the current locker rooms? The white privilege debate. Miller keeps it real. Miller, who is black and lived through the racial tensions of the 1980s, didn't shy away from the white privilege conversation that has haunted Clark's rise. She acknowledged that the media has their narrative, but she defended Clark's work ethic as the ultimate equalizer. "I know what it's like to be hated," Miller said with chilling honesty. "I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color. I can't imagine this young lady. I don't want to use hate, but being despised by dummies because of things she can't control." Miller's stance is clear. Caitlin Clark didn't ask to be the great white hope or the face of a race war. She asked to be a basketball player. Miller argued that by punishing Clark for the media's obsession with her, the league is committing a vicious injustice. The advice to Juju Watkins. The interview took a fascinating turn when Miller brought up the next great superstar, Juju Watkins. Miller, a USC alum, sees Juju as the next logical step in the evolution of the game. But she issued a stern warning. The toxic treatment Caitlin Clark received is exactly what Juju will face if the dummies aren't stopped now. Miller's advice to Juju? Stay focused, keep your circle small, and don't let the old guard bitterness dim your light. By defending Clark, Miller is effectively clearing a path for Juju Watkins, ensuring that the rookie hazing of 2024 doesn't become the standard for the superstars of 2026. Closing part 1. The GOAT has spoken, and the shockwaves are still being felt. Sheryl Miller didn't just defend a rookie. She redefined the entire conversation around the WNBA. She has labeled the critics as ungrateful dummies and exposed the generational jealousy that is threatening to fumble the bag for women's sports. We're going to dive into the fever fallout. How did Sheryl Swoopes respond to being called a dummy by her idol? We'll also look at the hidden stats Miller pointed to that prove Clark's dominance isn't just hype. And finally, we'll ask the billion-dollar question. With the 2026 season approaching, is the WNBA finally ready to embrace the Clark era? Or is the rift between legends like Miller and Swoopes only getting wider? When Sheryl Miller dropped the big dummies bomb on all the smoke, she wasn't just throwing an insult. She was issuing a professional ultimatum. For much of 2024 and 2025, the primary architect of the anti-Clark sentiment was Sheryl Swoopes. From claiming that Caitlin was a 25-year-old playing against 20-year-olds to her infamous silence on live broadcasts while Clark set records, Swoopes became the poster child for what Miller calls generational jealousy. But something shifted in 2026. As the league prepares for the historic 30th season, the Swoopes narrative has officially crumbled. Reports have surfaced that even Swoopes' closest allies have begun to distance themselves from her more aggressive takes. Why? Because the money became too loud to ignore. With the Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire paying record expansion fees to enter the league and TV ratings up 400% across the board, the veterans realized that hating on the engine of that growth was a fast track to being sidelined. Sheryl Miller's interview was the final nail in the coffin. By calling out her peers as dummies, she exposed the financial insanity of their position. "You're getting paid now," Miller shouted. "Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat." This wasn't just a defense of a player. It was a lecture on business economics. The technical takedown, beyond the hype. One of the most powerful aspects of Miller's defense is that she is one of the few people qualified to speak on the skill gap. While critics like Swoopes tried to claim Caitlin was just a shooter, who would be physically overmatched, Miller pointed to the All-Star game as the moment the myth died. Miller, who coached the WNBA All-Star team to a victory over Team USA, saw firsthand how Caitlin Clark's gravity changes the geometry of the court. She noted that Clark wasn't just shooting deep. She was manipulating professional defenses in a way that very few veterans can. "I can't fault her for what she was given," Miller said, referring to the media hype. But she quickly pivoted to the production. In 2024, Clark became the first rookie in history to record a triple-double. In 2025, she led the Indiana Fever to their first home court playoff advantage in a decade. Miller's point is simple. The hype didn't create the stats justified the hype. By 2026, the adjustment period Swoopes predicted has officially been proven wrong. Caitlin didn't adjust to the WNBA. She forced the WNBA to adjust to her. The vicious standard, a double standard exposed. Sheryl Miller also touched on the viciousness of the double standard applied to Caitlin Clark. She highlighted how every mistake Clark makes is magnified, while her historic accomplishments are often met with a "yeah, but." Miller drew a direct line between the treatment of Clark and the rookie hazing she herself faced in the 80s. However, she noted a key difference. "In my day, we were fighting for scraps. Today, these ladies are fighting for millions. To be vicious to the person bringing in the millions is just bad business." This part of the interview is currently trending because it addresses the internal sabotage within the WNBA. Miller argued that for decades, the league begged for this level of attention. Now that it's here, the dummies are trying to gatekeep the sport. Miller's message to the veterans was cold. "If you can't handle the spotlight she brought, step out of the way for the ones who can." The shifting locker room, the Caitlin effect on salaries. While the media drama continues, the reality inside the locker rooms is changing. As the 2026 CBA negotiations loom, players are starting to realize that Caitlin Clark is their greatest leverage. The big dummies comment hit home because it forced players to look at their bank accounts. The charter flights that were once a dream are now the standard. The minimum salary is projected to nearly double in the next agreement. Sheryl Miller's defense of Clark acts as a bridge between the legends who built the league for nothing and the stars who are finally getting paid. By siding with Clark, Miller has given permission to other veterans to stop the performative hate. We are already seeing players like Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston become more vocal in their defense of their teammate, creating a united front that is slowly isolating the Swoopes camp. The hidden advice: the torch is passed. The most emotional part of Part 2 centers on the private advice Miller gave Clark during the 2024 All-Star break. Miller revealed that she told Caitlin, "They despise you because they can't be you. This isn't just about basketball. It's about the burden of being a disruptor." Miller told Clark that her arrival broke the comfort zone of the WNBA. For 20 years, the league had a specific hierarchy. Caitlin Clark walked in and blew it up in 6 months. Miller's advice was for Caitlin to stop seeking validation from the old guard and start building her own legacy with the new generation. Players like Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, who, despite the media's rivalry narrative, are actually the ones benefiting most from the new Clark economy. The 2026 expansion, the final proof. As the Toronto Tempo prepares for its inaugural tip-off in May 2026, the Caitlin Clark effect is no longer a theory. It's a global phenomenon. The fact that the WNBA can expand into Canada and see immediate sellouts is the ultimate rebuttal to anyone calling Clark overrated. Sheryl Miller's final point in this section was a warning to the media. Stop looking for the fall. She noted that people have been waiting for Caitlin to hit the wall since her sophomore year at Iowa. Instead, she just keeps building higher walls. Miller's demolition of the hater narrative is a call for the league to finally grow up and embrace its golden era. Closing Part 2. The Swoopes wall has been breached. Sheryl Miller didn't just defend Caitlin Clark. She exposed the dummies who were trying to hold back the tide of progress. The vicious narratives are being replaced by a new reality. The WNBA is now a major league, and major leagues don't have time for generational pettiness. We are going to look at the final verdict. What does this mean for the 2026 season and the upcoming World Cup in Berlin? We'll look at the leaked responses from the Indiana Fever locker room regarding Miller's interview. And finally, we'll see how Juju Watkins is already using Miller's advice to navigate her own rise to superstardom. As the 2026 season approaches, the WNBA is no longer a league of potential. It is a league of global dominance. And if you want to know why Sheryl Miller chose this moment to call out the big dummies, you have to look back at the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game. That night wasn't just a game. It was a shift in the tectonic plates of the sport. Cheryl Miller, coaching Team WNBA against the Olympic-bound Team USA, didn't just win, she showcased the future. By putting the ball in Caitlin Clark's hands and letting her orchestrate an offense that featured Angel Reese and Aaliyah Boston, Miller proved that the new era wasn't just about hype, it was about a superior style of play. In her All the Smoke interview, Miller revealed that the dummies in the media and the league were actually rooting for Team USA to humble the rookies. Instead, Clark finished with a record-breaking 10 assists, and the rookies walked away with the win. Miller's verdict was cold. You can't humble what's already legendary. She argued that by 2026, the attempt to gatekeep the game has officially failed. The fans have voted with their wallets, and the legends have voted with their legacies. The white privilege reality check. One of the most intense moments of Miller's interview dealt with the elephant in the room, the racial narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark. Miller, a black woman who dominated in an era of extreme racial tension, delivered a perspective that silenced the room. She acknowledged that the media has their narrative and that white privilege is a real societal factor. However, she pivoted to a point that few others have dared to make. Don't punish the girl for the media's obsession. Miller argued that by making Caitlin Clark the villain of the race conversation, the dummies in the WNBA are actually doing a disservice to the black players who built the league. You want to honor the black women who came before? Miller asked. Then build a league that is profitable enough to pay them what they're worth. Caitlin Clark is the engine for that profit. If you tear down the engine because you don't like the color of the car, you're just going to end up stranded on the side of the road again. The Swoopes, silence, and the 2026 reality. By early 2026, the Sheryl Swoopes versus Caitlin Clark saga has reached a fascinating conclusion. After a year of being fact-checked by the entire internet, and now being labeled a dummy by the GOAT herself, Swoopes has notably softened her stance. Reports from WNBA training camps suggest that the anti-Clark faction has largely disbanded. Why? Because the 2026 expansion fees for teams in Toronto and Portland have reached a staggering $200 million. That money doesn't happen without the TV ratings and jersey sales driven by the Clark-Reese-Watkins generation. Cheryl Miller's interview was the final notice to the old guard. The bag has been secured. Stop trying to fumble it. Miller pointed out that even those who despised Clark are now flying on the charter flights she helped fund. I see you on that private jet, Miller joked. You sure look comfortable for someone who hates the reason you're on it. Advice for the next GOAT, Juju Watkins. The interview concluded with a passing of the torch. Cheryl Miller, the greatest to ever wear the USC jersey, spoke directly about the current USC superstar, Juju Watkins. Miller sees in Juju the same vicious competitive fire she had, but she worries about the toxic environment the media has created. Miller's advice to Juju was a blueprint for the 2026 season. Control the narrative, or it will control you. She told Juju to watch how Caitlin Clark handled the vitriol of 2024 with grace and silence. Miller argued that Clark's greatest strength wasn't her Logo 3. It was her ability to remain untouchable by the noise. She encouraged Juju to form a united front with Clark and Reese, because as long as the superstars are divided, the dummies in the media will always have something to talk about. The 2026 World Cup, Berlin and beyond. Looking ahead to the 2026 FIBA World Cup in Berlin, Cheryl Miller predicted that the U.S. senior national team will be the most dominant in history, if they embrace the youth movement. She called for the old guard to step aside and let the Clark-Buchers-Watkins trio take the lead. The world is catching up, Miller warned. France is coming. China is coming. We can't win gold medals with legacy spots anymore. We need the killers. By defending Clark, Miller is ensuring that the best players, not the most senior players, are the ones representing the flag. The final word: stop being bitter. The interview ended with a mic drop moment that is currently the #1 trending clip on sports Twitter. When asked what her one message to the WNBA veterans would be, Cheryl Miller looked directly into the camera and said, "Stop being bitter and start being grateful. We played for $15,000 and a dream. These girls are playing for millions and a global stage. If you can't be happy for that, you never loved the game. You only loved yourself. Caitlin Clark didn't take anything from you. She gave you a future. Act like you know it." Closing the script. The Cheryl Miller erasure of the hater narrative is complete. The legend has spoken, the dummies have been called out, and the new era has been officially authenticated by the GOAT. As we head into the 2026 season, the focus is finally back where it belongs. On the basketball, Caitlin Clark has her defender. Juju Watkins has her blueprint. And the WNBA has its future. The big dummies might still be talking, but after Cheryl Miller's demolition, nobody is really listening anymore. Final closing for the video. And there you have it. The full, unfiltered breakdown of Cheryl Miller's demolition of the Sheryl Swoopes narrative. The GOAT has chosen her side, and it is firmly with the new generation. But I want to hear from you. Did Cheryl Miller go too far by calling her peers big dummies? Or was this the reality check the WNBA desperately needed? Do you think the generational jealousy is finally over, or is the 2026 season going to bring even more drama? Head down to the comments and let me know. If you're standing with Cheryl and Caitlin, drop a hashtag GOAT in the chat. If you think the veterans deserve more respect, let me hear your argument. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because the 2026 season is just getting started, and we are covering every second of the action. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at tip-off. The GOAT has officially spoken, and the shockwaves from Cheryl Miller's Big Dummies comment are going to be felt for the rest of the 2026 season. But now, the real question isn't what the legends think, it's what you think. We are witnessing the most explosive era in the history of women's sports, but as Cheryl Miller pointed out, generational jealousy is threatening to fumble the bag. Is Cheryl Miller right? Is the old guard simply being bitter about the fame and fortune Caitlin Clark has brought to the league? Or do veterans like Sheryl Swoopes have a legitimate point about the overhyping of the new generation? I want you to head down to the comments right now and let your voice be heard. If you're standing with Cheryl Miller and you're ready to see the new era take over, drop a hashtag Team Cheryl below. But if you think the veterans deserve more respect for the foundation they built, I want to see your argument in the chat. Are the critics truly big dummies? Or is there more to this story than meets the eye? I'm reading every single comment, and I want to see who can make the most logical case for their side. Before you head out, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. From the 2026 CBA negotiations to the historic expansion in Toronto and Portland, we are your #1 source for the unfiltered truth in the WNBA. Don't get left behind while the rest of the world plays catch-up. Join our community of over 100,000 diehard fans. Stay locked in for the daily breakdowns, and let's grow this game together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.